Spletne, urice, Maribor, or in English, web hours. We still don't have like a fully fleshed out translation of our name because it just sounds better in Slovenian, but still, we're working on it.
It does. It absolutely sounds better.
Yeah, I mean, and who's the better person to talk about design today than Kyle, which is of Yugoslavian design aficionado,
Yes.
what I heard.
Or appreciator, yes.
Appreciator. Okay, how did you get into Yugoslavian design? This is now the question with which we will open up
Yeah.
today's
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, it was my friend Spela, who many of you probably know, and just getting to know her. And, you know, as a design team, we like to kind of share Instagram accounts or, you know, design blogs that we found. And I'm pretty sure it started with Spela just sharing like a Made in Yugoslavia Instagram account. And from there, I was hooked. So yeah, you should. It's once you see it, it's easy to kind of just want to follow it more. So yeah, that's how I got started.
I also got a quick story regarding Yugoslavian design. So
Sure.
in December, I was in Kosovo, which we all know from the bombings and Bill Clinton's undying love for it. And you know that they got a statue of Bill Clinton in one of the squares in Pristina. It's like,
Do they really?
yeah, it's like the
Standing?
weirdest, yeah, the weirdest thing ever. But
Wow.
yeah, as the whole Yugoslavian architecture, they also got this national library, which was in this list of 10 ugliest buildings in the world. So, I mean, you worked for quite some companies as a designer.
Yes.
So I don't know if maybe people at Modern Tribe and Mozilla and everywhere else that you worked would be like, you know, interested in hearing your love for Yugoslavia.
That's true. Although I don't know, what I'm hearing is that it's memorable, and it's, you know what I mean. So it's made its impact.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about digital whiteboards. Just a quick, brief intermezzo. We are live on the internet, so you can follow us on our YouTube channel, Instagram channel, www.hmb. Why? Because www, World Wide Web,
Yes.
H, hours, MB, short for Maribor.
Love
So,
it. That's
I
smart.
mean, it's really smart.
I like it. I like it.
Okay, enough of the chit chat, Kyle. The stage is yours. For everybody else watching, if you have any questions, comments, just leave them in the stream. And Kyle, here we go.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Blendor, and thank you, everybody, for joining. If you're watching now or later, either way, I appreciate it. And thanks to Spela for inviting me. Excited to talk about digital whiteboarding. So a little bit about me. I work at a company called Modern Tribe. We're a digital agency, usually building websites, apps, software for enterprise clients. The last 4 years, I was the creative director at Modern Tribe, but I recently switched to a product role. So my current title is the Director of Product Innovation, but I used digital whiteboards quite heavily in my tenure as creative director, and I'm using it just as much in my new product role as well. So I'm excited to kind of show you some examples of how I use digital whiteboarding and how we use it to collaborate with each other, but also our clients, things like that. I'd say I'd also want to note I've been working remotely with team members around the world and clients around the world for about 11 years now. But the digital whiteboard is, I'd say, somewhat new. within that tenure. I've been using it for probably the last 4 years. And in that 4 years, the number of tools to choose from has grown, and the feature set has grown. We'll dig into that a little bit. But a lot of my examples I'll share today kind of focus on some of the basics, a marker tool, pulling in screenshots and kind of drawing on them, things like that. So hopefully I'll give you all a good idea of some of the things you can do with a digital whiteboard and give you some ideas of things you might want to do differently yourself. There are a number of tools available for digital whiteboarding. Some of the popular ones are Miro, Freehand from Envision. FigJam's a new offering from Figma that is starting to really pick up speed. There's also Mural, Explain Everything. The examples that I'm going to share today will primarily be Miro's, Freehands, and I think I have a FigJam in here. And all these different tools, they do vary a little bit in their UI, their feature set, obviously their pricing and things like that. But I think the commonalities you'll see throughout the examples is, again, just leveraging a really core tool set of a marker tool, sticky notes, screenshots, things like that. So if you watch this and you're kind of curious which one is maybe right for you, I don't necessarily go into all the individual differences between them, but if you ever have any questions or want advice on which one you might want to start with, by all means, email me, hit me up on Twitter. I'll share that contact info at the end here. So these are some of the tools that you can play with. And some of the use cases for using a digital whiteboard. One is sketching and wireframing. So I've always kind of been a digital first designer. I know a lot of people who their process is to start with pen and paper, really like hand sketching concepts out, and that's never been my personal comfort zone. But the digital whiteboard has actually provided a place of comfort for me to be able to start with maybe a low fidelity sketch, but just with a mouse and a keyboard. So some examples I'll show today is just literally drawing out, sketching out some UI concepts. Another common use case for us is workshops. So this could be a team workshop, or it could be a client workshop. Some examples I'll show is being able to sort of quickly capture and organize ideas. I'll show off a way that you can do sort of voting exercises. Let's say you're looking at multiple design concepts and you kind of want to get feedback from everybody and let them sort of vote on maybe the standouts. I'll show that. Another common use case for us is retrospectives or reviews. One example I'll show is our design team likes to get together once a week and just kind of throw on a bunch of works in progress onto a digital whiteboard, and then we can kind of follow along and mark things up with feedback or emojis that express our love for the concept, that kind of thing. And finally, a common use case for us is research. And by research, I mean being able to create a sort of like centralized area that contains your research. So it could be visual design research, where perhaps you're capturing screenshots from a number of places of inspiration and putting them on a digital whiteboard to organize them. It could also be if you are wanting to research specific plugins or tools that you might want to use for your project, you can capture that in a digital whiteboard. And the cool thing about digital whiteboards that I haven't necessarily touched on yet is they're typically a large infinite canvas that multiple users can kind of come in and contribute to at the same time. So if anyone here is a user of Figma, a fan of Figma, and has been able to benefit from that multi-user collaboration and that sort of expansive canvas, whiteboards give you that same flexibility and freedom. So these are some of the primary use cases that I'll kind of walk through. And I titled this talk "Collaborating with a Digital Whiteboard," and I really think that that's really one of the magic pieces here, is being able to brainstorm with someone visually from thousands of miles away. And for us, we most commonly use whiteboards to collaborate with our teammates. We will do it with clients. Again, I'll show some workshop examples. We've used whiteboards to collaborate with focus groups. Maybe a subsection of users that we want to get some feedback from. And also, it's a great sort of personal tool where obviously the multi-person collaboration is a huge piece of value here, but I have plenty of whiteboards that I use as scratch pads, where if I want to quickly sketch something real quick, I'll open my scratch pad that doesn't necessarily belong to a specific project or a specific folder. Just start sketching something out, maybe screenshot it and pass it along. So it almost kind of provides a digital version of maybe having a notebook right with you on your desk. So without further ado, I figure I'll just I'm going to literally pull up some as-is examples of whiteboards and just kind of talk through how we approached things and maybe some tips and tricks along the way. So I'll go ahead and I'll start with some sketching and wireframe examples. So let me pull up this first link. So this first demo, the tool that it's using is Freehand. That's from InVision. And I wanted to show this, you'll start to see, so even my deck here, I'm doing it in Miro, which is one of the whiteboarding tools. And so you can see these tools here. You can add stickies and shapes and things like that. That's pretty par for the course for these tools. You can see InVision has a very similar UI here. But really what I wanted to show off is, if I zoom in here real quick, we're constructing wireframes with a very simple set of features here. We're using text, we're using shapes and or the pencil tool, and then we're using stickies to track notes and everything like that. So this was a project, it was actually the redesign for harvard.edu. For Harvard University. So what's cool is, even a site for an organization like Harvard that might, carries this brand recognition, this prestige, obviously there's fairly high stakes in a project like that, but the beginnings are pretty humble. To me, this is the equivalent of that pencil and paper sketch here. And actually, what we're looking at here is even higher fidelity than where we started. If I come over here, we kind of did this collaboratively with the client, where, if we're tackling a home page, we're able to quickly identify some goals up front. And then using stickies, what we did was track a sort of like content outline. And we did this in real time with the client, where once we had our outline, we did some very brief sketches just to sort of say that, like, news stories, there'll be multiple, and we might want to track multimedia, so video versus maybe a story, that kind of thing. So this was kind of our first sort of very low fidelity pass at things, and then allowed us to, over time, increase fidelity a little bit. And again, as far as all the different features that Miro offers or Freehand offers or whatever it might be, we're really largely relying on the basic feature set that any tool would have. There'll be a couple examples, I think, where I'll show some of the more sort of intense or more complex features. But all this to show you can redesign a site like harvard.edu with very rudimentary tools here. So that is the first example. I'll show one other UX design example, just to give you a range of the fidelities that you can achieve with these tools. So this one is with Miro, and the Miro wireframes look probably closer to what some might picture when you think of wireframes. It's much more, think more like just black and white text and sort of like hard shapes and things like that, whereas the Envision approach was a little bit more sketched out, a little more of a hand-drawn approach. And so a lot of times this can come down to sort of like personal preference. Do you prefer to sketch, or do you prefer to construct using shapes and things like that? But really, the end result is the same. We have this big, expansive canvas where we don't have to focus on high fidelity visual design, getting distracted. And then on top of that, because we have this sort of expansive canvas, we can track goals and notes. We can create inventories for ourselves using stickies. And obviously, it'll become clear that these kind of whiteboards are what you make of them. It's really like you have a blank canvas to work with and sort of organize things as you see fit, add things in real time as you're talking out loud with people. And I think this whole board here represents the result of multiple group working sessions. Sometimes we're wireframed together, we're tracking stickies off to the side, things like that. So far I've shown just kind of two different flavors of using a whiteboard to approach sketching. Again, you can go a little bit more hand-drawn route, or you can go more traditional sort of shape-based wireframing here. So that is a couple early examples. The next I'll show is some workshop examples. So let me pull up the first one. And again, these are all sort of like real project examples. None of these are, I didn't create these for this talk or anything. So you get the benefit of sort of like seeing the actual context, but as you might be experiencing, there's a lot here. There's a lot of mess. And if you weren't necessarily involved from start to finish, maybe all the specific details don't necessarily make immediate sense. But I'll do my best to kind of point out our thought process and things like that. So this board right here was for a workshop that we ran for a client project. The client was data.org. They are a organization that ensures that social impact organizations are leveraging data science as much as possible to achieve social good. So you can imagine an organization a charity that is maybe wanting to increase clean water supply for the world. Data.org is an organization that ensures that organizations like that have access to data, big sort of data sets that help them sort of achieve the social good that they're looking to create. And the audience here was representatives from a number of social impact organizations. And what we wanted to do was get some feedback on really just the kinds of resources and guides that we might be able to provide for them. So if I start at the actual nitty-gritty, what we wanted to do is first present them a proof of concept of a resource library. So this wireframe right here is sort of the context we gave them where, hey, if we were going to present tools and guides and templates for you, what kind of content should we be creating? And where do you currently find your resources? That kind of thing. So this is kind of what we were getting feedback from. And I'll note too that this wireframe I made in Miro. So even this wireframe I used the whiteboard tool to create. And really you can see, sticky notes, they go so far. And pretty similar to if you were going to host an in-person workshop, you'd probably have a lot of pens for people. You'd probably have sticky packs laid out on the tables for people, and that's really how we achieved this here. So when we started this workshop, I framed out these art boards and sort of like sticky landing zones ahead of time. I made sure that people had plenty of stickies off to the side. So really in terms of like recreating that sort of in-person workshop experience. it's what stays the same is just a little bit of upfront prep and organization will get people off to a good start. And you can see this is the end result. We also introduced like a voting exercise. We call it red dot, green dot. Just a simple green dot if it's a positive reaction, red if it's a negative, and then we can scan and start to see some patterns. Oh, this has plenty of green dots. Does anyone want to speak to why they did that? So we kind of put those out for people. The other thing I'll note here too, if you do want to maybe dip into doing some remote workshops, is we kind of assumed that most of the people joining would be unfamiliar with Miro and just whiteboarding in general. So we included a quick little tutorial for users, just kind of teaching them how to zoom, how to select a sticky and drag it, things like that. I'll also note that one really cool feature of these tools, I think Figma works the same way, where up here in the top where you can see my avatar, if there were multiple people in here, you'd have multiple avatars up here. And not only can people click me to follow me, but I could also bring everyone to me whenever I needed to. So in this big expansive board, if I'm moving on way over here and people are still kind of on the tutorial, I can always kind of like reset by bringing everyone to me. So yeah, in terms of running a remote workshop, that can always be a kind of a power feature. Also, in addition to like just the quick tutorial, we found this to be really helpful for workshops, which is, everyone kind of loves and hates the icebreaker, when you do a workshop or a meeting. What's your favorite dessert or something like that? So we did do an icebreaker in this workshop, but it actually doubled as a sort of like an exercise of getting familiar with Miro. So we had all these stickies off to the side. So the homework essentially was grab a sticky, move it to where you want it, double click to start typing, and then say carrot cake, because as we all know, carrot cake is the best dessert in the world. So this is a nice little icebreaker, but also gets them actually using the tool that they'll then be using, for the duration of the workshop.
Kyle, I just got one question at this point. I mean, it's a question that both I and Spela share. I use Miro on almost a daily basis,
yes.
And I really love all the features that Miro has. I also like FigJam. I've been using FigJam for some time now, since it came out of the beta. Mm-hmm. Or is it still in beta? But now
I think it's out of beta in February, I think.
Okay. But yeah, since last year, like somewhere around October or something like that,
sure.
When they started pushing it. And the key question is, how in the name of God do you have an organized whiteboard? Because it's so hard. Like, do you have any secrets in organizing?
Oh,
because
my
once
word.
you start building out, I'm looking at this proof of concept here, this growth kit, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like, how long did it take to build it out? Like, how did you build it out? This is
sure. So this is, I'd say one thing I leveraged for this specific workshop is something that Miro is really, really good at, and I think Envision's Freehand has gone down this road too, is they have a lot of templates that you can start with, and I think it was one of the templates that I found this tutorial here to insert. And the cool thing is, when you use templates, here, if I go ahead and use this first one, where did it enter? Did it enter it somewhere I'm not sure of? It might have. Oh, yeah. Wow, that's a big one. That's a real big one. But the cool thing about templates is, it starts there, but then you can modify it, to your heart's content. And so that's what I had done for the tutorial. The tutorial template was a lot more expansive, and I just kind of whittled it down to what I needed. So I'd say one, leverage examples from either the Miro or the community to kind of like see, hey, if they ended up in an organized spot, that might be something I want to achieve myself. The other is this one, I will say there's plenty of examples I'm showing you that aren't as organized and clean. So I don't know if I'm a master at organization necessarily, but I will say one thing that really helped me organize this specific example is just knowing that, okay, I'm going to have at least a dozen people that have never used Miro before. I knew I wanted to have some kind of like linear path. So I almost kind of treated it as like a slide deck. I tried to make sure that, each thing had a singular purpose and really kind of pay attention to the natural order of things. But you're right. I mean, it's like you live by the infinite canvas and you die by the infinite canvas. We've even ran into areas where a freehand or a Miro got so big that we weren't comfortable like removing anything, but we also weren't comfortable adding to it. So we had to like create a new one. It's like, okay, well that's the first archive. We're starting a new one. A
whole new one, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, plus it's a really cool idea treating it like slide decks, because slide decks are something that people are already used to, like they got a mental model of a presentation deck or something, built in their head, and it's quite natural for us, to follow like this linear structure. So this is a good one. I'm going to use it for my next whiteboard. So
awesome. And the interesting thing is, Miro actually has a presentation mode, which I think if I click it here, it's actually like I'm using my arrow keys to kind of navigate between frame and frame. So yeah, depending on how much you want to lean into the deck approach, you could go all the way and just use this as Google Slides alternative or whatever it might be. So nice. Yeah, that's a great question. I'll show a couple more workshop examples, and then I'll get into some research. And feel free to time check me anytime, Blendor, because I can, left unchecked, I might go on for far too long. So
I don't have any meetings planned on later on. So.
Perfect. So we are back to freehand. And a quick note, jumping from freehand to Miro. Honestly, the primary move for us was a cost factor. Miro, we've found it's a little bit easier to collaborate with client guests and teammates. Just the use cases are a little bit more broad. So rather than pay for both freehand and Miro, we kind of just had to pick one. But I personally would be just as happy using freehand every day as I would be with Miro. And honestly, I prefer the way InVision handles the drawing and sketching over Miro. But overall, I love Miro. I'm with you, Blender. I use it every single day. I would be very sad without it. But just a note on why I kind of have two examples. It's really, if it was more than 2 years old, or let's see, a year, if it's more than a year and a half old, it's probably going to be in freehand for me. If it's within the last year and a half, it'll be Miro. So this is an example of a workshop we did with the Harvard client where we were doing a red dot, green dot voting exercise on multiple design concepts. And we are looking at the after. So I think when it started, the initial version of this was just a grid of the concepts, a bunch of sticky packs, and then we kind of went one by one, sort of added our feedback. And you can see in this after state, we've already kind of like organized things. So back to your question on organization, Blender, this happened after the fact. I consider this the equivalent of like cleaning up after the party. In the process, yeah, it got pretty messy. But again, I think it's really notable that all this work was completed with sticky notes, screenshots, and a pencil tool. Like you can do, I really would encourage you as you use these tools to explore all their features. But there's so much you can do with just those rudimentary tools here. So again, it's dragging sticky notes and making sure that they're there for people in the first place. Marking up, circling things you might like, things like that. The other thing too is that we kind of like to do for workshops, and we saw this a little bit in the Miro workshop, is just kind of having a setting context for people. So we let them know here, since this is the first time we were looking at visual concepts, we kind of just want to reset the context of, hey, this is early. What we're not looking at is full page designs, that kind of thing. So, before using a whiteboard so much, you kind of had to rely on Google Docs a lot, whether it be Google Docs or PowerPoint or something like that. And really, tools like Miro and Vision for a lot of the day-to-day, it replaces all those tools. Obviously, if I'm capturing technical scope for a project, I'm probably not going to write all that in Miro. I'll probably have a Google Doc still. But for these simple things of, hey, we're doing a workshop and I have a quick intro for you, there's no need to have a separate doc to share. We can have all that in here. So
maybe if I can just jump in real quick.
Yeah.
We run a startup studio. So basically, we iterate on ideas and build out various digital products.
Mm-hmm.
And we started doing information architecture instead in Google Docs in Miro boards.
Yeah.
So we have now in the last, let's say, half a year since we are working with Miro, we have built out, like our own sticky notes and our own, way of mapping out things.
That's
and we actually do quite a lot of information architecture. First in Miro, then we transfer it to Figma, where we, sketch out things and design it. So, every one of these whiteboarding tools can be used for like a lot of different things. You just have to find like your way of doing stuff, and it's really powerful.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I think most of my examples focus on the sort of like workshop-y rudimentary tools. But yeah, there's Miro, like they added mind mapping, and you can make user flow diagrams and flow charts. That's designed specifically for those types of tasks. So yeah, the use cases, honestly, they continue to grow. It's pretty cool. I'll show just one more example of a workshop. We're going to go back to Miro. This is for data.org. And what we were tasked with for data.org, we kind of did a two-phase launch where the first phase here was just kind of redesigning what they had today, which was or at the time, which was a pretty small marketing site. So what we did was we took kind of full page screenshots of a number of the key pages here. And then using stickies, we had a sort of a real-time conversation with the client where we're capturing page goals, but also sort of marking up the sort of content outline. So if this is what exists today, we've got a brand intro, introing their sort of growth and recovery challenge, bringing in stories of impact, just kind of outlining what they have today. And then using stickies, we're able to track, what are we keeping, what's missing, essentially creating a very low fidelity content outline in a way that I think, could you do this in a Google Doc where you're just like creating bullet lists? I think you could, but I think what this provides you is, again, a single space to work. And I don't know, there's something about creating a sticky and moving it and organizing it that just feels a lot more of a visual way of thinking, a lot more of a collaborative way of thinking. And I think it allows you to frame what could be just a meeting as a working session, a collaboration session. Again, not unlike being in a room together and putting stickies on a wall, that kind of thing. So yeah, a number of different ways to run workshops here. I'll show a quick example of leveraging it as sort of like a research repository. So this one might have quite a few to load. This is a freehand, and this was for, I think it was a couple years ago, where we're just starting to kick off a redesign of our agency site, of just Modern Tribes site, tri.be. And so in this research phase, we wanted to start with mood boards. And what we wanted to do is we kind of wanted it to represent the perspectives of sort of everyone on the design team first, and then kind of whittle that down to sort of a shared perspective. So this is an example of being able to capture a lot of reference points from a lot of people. So if I zoom in here real quick, what we kind of asked for was, we let people know that, like, this is kind of what we're looking to change. This is the way it could be, it could sort of be activated. Go out and find examples of anything like this that would serve as sort of visual inspiration. So you can see here, we've got Maddie here, dozens of examples. Jackie's got her own. So, it started with this big sort of expansive place. Without this, I don't know what I would have done differently. A Dropbox folder, maybe, where everyone's adding to, or I suppose you could do something like this in Photoshop or Illustrator and, share it that way. But to be able to, not only for myself, to make a grid of my 24 reference images, but also to allow Blender to do that as well right next to me and be able to together like compare and talk about it and mark things up. It's like it's truly changed remote work for the better. So, and you can see, our process-wise, we kind of, after many discussions, we kind of took all the shared aspects and whittled it down into some unique concepts to explore. So again, nothing I've shown here is really relying too much on anything beyond some of the rudimentary features. So you can imagine once you actually, if you make good use of those, just think of what you can do once you get into mind mapping and diagramming and everything like that. So I'll show one more example. And this is a Fig Jam, the first Fig Jam example of the day. We were pretty excited when Fig Jam was released. I'd say one pain point, I'm reluctant to call it a pain point because it won't stop me from using these tools. But the one pain point is, you've got Miro things in one area and you've got Figma area stuff in another. And one thing that I think Fig Jam brings in terms of potential anyway is just even more centralized, to be able to have, your whiteboard that's in Figma and be able to sort of like share components between the whiteboard and your design system or something like that. Also, Fig Jam's really good at, when you copy and paste, you can paste it as an image, but it'll also paste in like Figma artboards where everything's like, you can manipulate it and everything like that. So there's some advantages to Fig Jam for sure. It's not as feature mature as the others. I think Fig Jam is catered more towards a simpler whiteboard, whereas maybe Miro's on the other end of like, well, Miro's a whiteboard plus a number of different things. So I'd encourage you to, if you are interested, really kind of play with all of them and sort of see what you think might work best for you. But Fig Jam has been really great for our team design reviews because we are designing right in Figma. And so what we end up doing is we kind of created a whiteboard for every month. So this is of October 2021. And every week we get on a call, we kind of drop in some in-progress work. And then, using the tools like, hey, I want to follow this person or bring everyone to me, it allows everyone to kind of do a quick walkthrough of their work, and along the way, we can sort of mark things up for feedback. So you can see here, we've got this card here, and I had asked, I wonder if these should be higher contrast. And you can also, FigJam, I think one interesting thing that they do that others don't is they really, I think, try to make this a fun experience. So let me see if I can find the example. So they've got these like emoji things where if I click and hold, it's like, ooh, I've got hard eyes everywhere. And we really make use of this a lot. It can really bring a lot of personality to these remote calls where maybe I can see your faces, maybe I can't. Yeah, I may not use FigJam as often as the others, but it's something I'm going to continue to sort of keep my eye on for a number of reasons. But one being like they seem to be leaning into like it being a collaborative tool and making sort of delightful, fun experiences for people along the way. So again, zooming out, the idea here is every week you add your stuff, you walk through, you mark it up. The following week, you just kind of make a line, start over again, things like that. So the other kind of cool byproduct of this is I can go into my FigJam files, I can go into my freehand files, and I have like a historical record of the past however many months where I can go in, oh yeah, what were we working on in August of 2021? Oh yeah, we had a freehand or we had a FigJam. I'm just gonna hop in there. And obviously it doesn't represent everything we did, but it is a really kind of nice sort of time machine moment to go back and not only see the work, but see all the feedback comments that people shared and everything. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Okay, we also got one question from Samo. Samo is asking, do any of the whiteboarding tools have a save file format or some sort of export that you can store to a file or load for editing later? I was just wondering, do they have it? Because I've been using the whiteboard, like, click on the URL and just work in it. Like, never really occurred to me.
That's a really good question. I can't say that they definitively don't have that. Yeah, we've run a similar issue where, what's a good example? Yeah, even this sort of like look and feel exercise, I was trying to think of a way to like save it. I mean, exporting is a good way to put it. I wanted to essentially, after we wrapped up the project, I wanted to make sure that we hand them over all the tutorials we made them, and it's easy to hand off a Figma file. And obviously, I handed off the URL here, but this is tied to our account, and what if we no longer have it, et cetera. So. Yeah, I'm not sure. I do recall some like baseline level of like you can export as like a single flat image, which could be helpful if it's relatively if it's a reasonable size. Obviously, if this was all one big image, I don't know how helpful that would be. I do know that now that I say it, I believe Miro will let you export frames as a PDF. Let me, where would I find that? Here I am, the expert who can't find the export feature. But maybe
I think if you click on the frame and then on the three dots that it shows you, does it have like an export, something like that?
Export to CSV, which isn't quite the same. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that. But I seem to recall pretty heavily that at least exporting the frames was the thing, because I think I had to do it recently. So.
But yeah, that's a feature request maybe for the developers of Figma and other stuff.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, it's funny because like there's so many features that I haven't used yet in Miro, not because I couldn't use them or anything like that, but just because you go so far with the basics. But even just kind of like poking around, even using these like notes, this meeting notes here. I've been wanting to dig into a little bit more, less for meeting notes, but more of almost like a table of contents. Because one thing you can do is you can link directly to a specific item on the board. So I could link specifically to this sticky, and maybe this kind of falls back on your organization question, Blendor, where if you do have a big, expansive, like kind of a brain dump of a Miro board, one thing I've been wanting to explore is using this notes section to kind of create an inventory that each item would link to the specific area of the board or something like that. So I could do something like, early research, and knowing, that being able to click on that and it takes you all the way up to the top right corner where it's been stashed months ago, kind of thing. So yeah, I'm hoping to use that more.
In the meantime, Sam has followed up on his question. He said, or putting it another way, what prevents people from modifying the historical whiteboards? I mean, I'm thinking that this is basically how the team communicates. I mean, based on their internal agreement, we usually use Miro as or any other whiteboarding tool at this point. Just like, a big table where we put out all of our ideas, and if we want to have one concise unit, we just pick another frame, and then we just, I don't know, name it like, okay, this is an ideas frame, this is an archive frame, or whatever, or we just put it into another file. So I think that this really depends from team to team. Like, everybody has their own system, way of doing things. So I don't know if there's a simple answer to Samu's question.
I do know that Miro will let you lock certain elements from being edited, and that you have to long press to unlock it. That can be really helpful for, especially in workshops. Like, a lot of times I'll lock the frame. That way, if people are doing a click and drag, multi-select, that the frame itself doesn't get included in that. But additionally to just locking it, I believe, so there is a setting where only the board owner is able to unlock it. If someone modifying the file is a concern, there could be a number of different reasons for that concern. But if one of it's just, even in the moment or historically, don't touch this stuff, you could lock things as the board owner. You could make sure that you're the only one. And Miro's, I think, taken a lot of strides in general in terms of just sharing settings in general. For example, if I click share, you can say anyone who has the link can view, but not necessarily edit. Or you say no, they can edit. There's a number of different ways of access that you could sort of grant people. I don't know if you could do something where lock it and team members can unlock but guests can't, or something like that. I think there's some default permissioning in place where I think by default an anonymous guest can't unlock things. There's some safeguards in place, and I imagine that's an area where they'll probably continue to respond to user feedback around more granular controls if need be, that kind of thing. So I shared a lot of examples, all pretty similar. Again, I kept stressing the fact that I'm really just kind of using stickies and text and a marker. But as we kind of alluded to, there's so many different things you could do beyond that, even beyond workshops and research. You could run a meeting with a whiteboard. Going back to the templates here, here's an icebreaker template. Here's a retrospective template. I think the other value you get beyond the tool is just the knowledge sharing from the community behind UX design and whiteboarding in general. So That's a big one. You could use Miro to create a roadmap. Obviously, there's a number of road mapping tools out there, but depending on how kind of free-form you want it to be, you can do that. You can make flowcharts. You can mind map, and there's tons of other features that will support this. I talked about the templates a little bit. Miro has actual like voting mechanisms. We just relied on simple stickies dragging around, but if you actually want like a little bit more of a tangible sort of record of who's voting for what, that's a big one. They also have Trello-like cards. So, we've been using stickies here, but the advantage of a card is very similar to Trello. You can expand this, and now you can do description and tags and assignee. So, a lot of this depends on your workflow and what other tools you may be relying on for certain tasks. But in terms of like, as we know, design tools, it reminds me of streaming services, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, it's like $8 a month, but it's like, but how did I get to the point where I buy 10 different streaming services? Like I'm paying just as much as I did before. Same with sort of like SaaS, where they're usually pretty affordable, but they can add up over time, depending on your working style and the needs you have. Tools like Miro, once you get into it, they could kind of represent multiple different use cases that either complement your current tool stack or might even replace some of it. So definitely worth digging into all the more advanced features that I didn't necessarily touch on. So.
Plus one more cool thing, Miro has this really cool program for young startups and young companies where you can actually get a subsidy of some sort, a discount price, or you can also qualify for a free run, a couple of months use of their business plan. They also do a lot of partner work. So I think that I just made two many comments on Miro. I should probably.
Do you have an affiliate link you can share out, or?
I don't know. Maybe somebody will think that I'm sponsored from their end, but it's just like all of these whiteboarding tools from their initial release till now, like they've improved a lot, and you can do like really, really different things, like especially in the time of remote work. I think that it's really crucial to engage with people, to interact on a more deep level, and all of these little trinkets here and there help you, to get the engagement, even though we're like thousands of kilometers away from each other.
Absolutely. And, if you want even more examples than what I shared today, again, I'd encourage you to get the free trials of these tools and really explore their templates, because these templates, it's sometimes you'll see stuff in there that's like, placeholder text, lorem ipsum type of stuff, but others it has like real sort of tangible, sort of plausible examples. And there's been plenty of times where there may have been there could be like a strategy and planning template that's, I've never worked in that way before, but I also have never seen it, let alone been able to like play with it in real time. So for me, I've kind of been exploring decision tree templates, because I've been kind of getting into that a little bit more in Miro, and prioritization methods. They have a couple different templates for this. They've got a 2x2, a 3x3, etc. So if any of this is kind of like create an appetite, like, you can do so many things. Miro, and I think InVision does this too, through their templates, gives you that many more sort of real life examples and sources of inspiration in a way that you get to see the outcome, but two, you can actually play with it and modify it and everything like that. So it's pretty cool. And if you do have anything I could help you with after the fact, any questions on freehand versus Miro or use cases or anything like that, feel free to reach out. I can be reached at email with Kyle@tribe, tri.be, or you can follow me on Twitter. My first name, Kyle_Unzicker. Don't have a whole lot of design or tech tweets, but feel free to reach out anytime, follow me, whatever you want to do, and yeah, I'd be happy to help. So.
Okay, thanks very much, Kyle. This was a really, really nice talk, especially for all of us Miro fanboys.
Yes, right, that's right.
Totally not sponsored by Miro to talk about that.
I promise, yes.
Again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ping us on our social media channels. Oh, wait, what? Web Hours has social media channels? Of course we have. We've got Twitter, we've got YouTube, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram. We also have this really nice webpage. It's www.hmb.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter. We send occasional newsletters to all of our events. No spam, funny jokes, bad jokes. Both types of jokes are in Slovenian, so if you don't know Slovenian, use Google Translate. This is
right.
the easiest way to enjoy the jokes. I mean, the party doesn't stop here. Usually we do have discussions in person in our hometown of Maribor, but since we are currently speaking to somebody who's a couple of thousand miles away from us,
yes.
We will have the discussion online via our tool called Rally. So a link to the online chat room will be posted in the comment section down below. Wherever you are, YouTube, Facebook, whatever stream, just look for the Rally link and feel free to hop on, and we'll have a more relaxed conversation with
Perfect.
more than 2 people on the call. So.
Fair enough. I'll see you there.
Kyle, thanks again. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this awesome presentation, and talk to you in the Rally room.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Yeah.